Coming in at number 10 as a bit of an honorable mention is the Batman Who Laughs. Now, the reason this villain is only getting an honorable mention is because he's relatively new and has had a huge amount of publicity in the few years since his creation. But I still do think this character deserves some more exploration further down the road. As a twisted combination of Bruce Wayne and the Joker from the Dark Multiverse, the Batman Who Laughs was an incredibly intimidating villain that only got even more powerful when he gained the powers of Dr. Manhattan and became the Darkest Knight. But seeing as how he was then killed by God Mode Wonder Woman, and I do think that the Batman Who Laughs deserves a comeback in the near future so that we can see what really happens when the true Batman and the Batman Who Laughs go head to head. Coming in at number 9, coming in at number 8, we have the malicious psychologist known as Hugo Strange. One of Batman's oldest villains, originally debuting only 9 issues after the Caped Crusader himself in Detective Comics, Professor Hugo Strange was also one of the very first villains to ever figure out his secret identity as Bruce Wayne. While initially depicted as a typical mad scientist stereotype, using a weather machine to hide his minions' robberies with a thick layer of fog, more recent interpretations of the character have seen him as a devious manipulator, using his position of power as a doctor of psychology to examine the criminals of Arkham Asylum and scheming to gain power in Gotham City. It's this emphasis on mental ability rather than actual superpowers that makes Hugo Strange such an interesting villain to deal with, and why he definitely deserves to come back in a major Batman storyline.
And at 7, nobody. Morgan Ducard was the son of Henry Ducard, a world-renowned assassin, and Felicity Strode, a spy sent to kill Henry, who instead fell in love with him. I have to say though, that's the dream. Having a love so strong that even your assassin can't kill you, that's goals. From an early age, though he did not see him often, Morgan idolized his father. When his mother was contacted by the people who had hired her to kill Ducard years ago, telling her that if she failed to fulfill her end of the deal that they would kill her son, the young boy stabbed his mother to death with a kitchen knife. His father saw what he had done and appreciated Morgan's devotion to him, deciding to train his son to become an assassin like him. Ah, family bonding. Several years later, a young Bruce Wayne came to France hoping to train under Henry Ducard, but Bruce drew more attention to himself than he should have, and Morgan was sent to assassinate him. The American and Frenchman fought each other, but due to his prior training, Bruce ended up defeating Morgan and surviving the attack. This is when Morgan grew a hatred for Bruce, since after surviving, Henry decided to train him instead of killing him being Bruce Wayne in this scenario. Nobody would then go on to train Bruce's son Damian Wayne, and even was killed by Damian. And at 6, the Court of Owls. They are a violent cabal who uses architecture and murder to yield political influence throughout history. Their legend is told only through whispers and a nursery rhyme that bears their name. To carry out their interests, they employ a breed of highly trained assassins known as Talons. The leaders of the organization appear to be human and wear owl masks on their faces, whereas the rest of the court on the other hand are mutated and appear to actually be human-owl hybrids. Like, their owl-like distorted faces, long claws, and their eating style seemingly prove this, unless they're just really into roleplay. The Court of Owls takes notice when billionaire playboy philanthropist Bruce Wayne announces plans to rebuild and reshape Gotham City for the future. He is then sentenced to death by the group, and their assassin, the Talon, attempts to kill him during a meeting with politician Lincoln March. They struggle at the top of Wayne Tower, and the killer survives a fall from the top. Batman then begins to investigate, and he discovers that their society has secret headquarters throughout hidden rooms in every building established by the Alan Wayne Trust. So, yeah, a little personal. Halfway through in at number 5, Clayface. Basil Karlo, the original Clayface, was an actor who was driven mad when he heard of a remake of his classic horror film that he starred in, Dread Castle, and that he actually wouldn't be playing the lead role. Adopting the persona of Clayface, the villain from one of his old films, he became a serial killer that was targeting the cast and crew. He was eventually stopped by Batman and Robin, but later Karlo would actually be imbued with the powers of Clayface's Preston Payne and Sandra Fuller. While we may know about this character, the actual mysterious part of him comes from his DNA and his ability to copy a person's DNA. This actually ended up causing Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler, to learn Bruce's identity while he was recovering from cancer in the Lazarus Pit, since Clayface pretended to be a reanimated Boy Wonder and caused the epiphany. There is also the mystery of how in some continuities detached parts of his body can actually develop their own sentience, like in the Harley Quinn animated series, aptly known as the Quinverse. This is actually a thing. Yeah, you can lose his hand and then his hand will gain sentience. It's weird. And at 4, Joker's daughter. This is just a girl who finds Joker's face and then stitches it onto hers and then goes berserk. So honestly, it's not really Joker's daughter, but I believe it. The only person that I think could commit such an act is in fact the Joker. I mean, like, he did. He cut it off and then put it back on for death of the family, but anyway. While maybe not as prolific and accomplished as the Joker, Joker's daughter is definitely mysterious enough to make this list. Even if I'm pretty sure plenty of people know about her, but hey, that's fine. It's about mysterious, not unknown villains, right? Not to mention the fact that she also went by Catgirl, Scarecrow, Riddler's daughter, Penguin's daughter, Card Queen, and Harley Quinn. Each incarnation also calling herself the respected super person's daughter, which I have to say is going to make a family reunion real weird. But in actuality, she ended up being Dula Dent, Two-Face's daughter, I guess, apparently, which is still seemingly BS, but hey, that's why it's a mystery.
Coming in at number 3, we have the iconic Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face. Originally fighting for the side of justice with Bruce Wayne as Gotham's district attorney, Harvey Dent's mind was split in two following an acid attack that scarred exactly one half of his face. Making all of his decisions through a coin flip based on his past childhood trauma, Two-Face is one of the most well-known villains of Batman, but hasn't gotten a chance in recent years to really headline an event as a villain, usually only taking the focus in smaller storylines or as a supporting character. Personally, I think Two-Face is long overdue to take his place as a master of the criminal underworld. Coming in at number 2, we have Bruce Wayne's former childhood friend and current adulthood enemy, Hush. Born under the name of Thomas Elliot, Hush as a child was one of the first people to inspire Bruce on his road to becoming Batman. However, Thomas Elliot was a deranged child, wishing to have his family's fortune for himself and killing both of his parents to have it. After traveling the world and training to become a warrior, Hush adopted his supervillain persona and allied himself with the Riddler to rid the world of Bruce Wayne, organizing many of his enemies and even allies against him. And while the villain has appeared several times since, it's been a while since we've truly gotten to see the master manipulator Hush at work. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the Phantasm, aka Andrea Beaumont. Originally debuting in the animated film Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, Andrea Beaumont was Bruce Wayne's first love, the girl he almost considered abandoning his mission as Batman for before the mission had even begun. Unfortunately for Bruce, Andrea and his relationship was forced to an end by the death of her father, causing Andrea to begin her descent into becoming the vengeful spirit known as the Phantasm. As a villain with an incredibly cool design and a very personal connection to Batman, the Phantasm has been only recently seen in the comics, and definitely takes my top pick for the villain that most deserves another storyline.
Number 10, Blockbuster. Blockbuster might not be an A-list Bat villain, but I don't think I've ever mentioned him on this channel before, and I thought it was about time that we gave him a little shout out. We see you, Blockbuster, we see you. While not one of the most popular Bat villains, Blockbuster still packs a mighty punch. The current incarnation of the villain is Roland Desmond, who has reappeared in the Prime Earth continuity throughout the current Nightwing series. In fact, even though he started out of Detective Comics, he's now actually thought of more as a Nightwing villain. Even more recently resurfacing in Nightwing in issue 83. Blockbuster has also had many incarnations throughout the years since the character's first appearance as Mark Desmond back in 1965 in Detective Comics issue 345. Some versions have been tougher and more powerful than others, but all of them have possessed some level of super strength, durability, and stamina, usually granted to them by the Blockbuster serum, and often at the cost of some intelligence. However, the current Blockbuster does not suffer the same weakness, instead simply suffering physical pain if remaining in his transformed super buff state for too long.
And a 9, Condiment King. Okay, before you yell at me, hear me out a little bit, okay? Condiment King may just seem like a random dude who uses ketchup and mustard as a weapon, but you have to admit that would not fit in the DCEU. The DCEU has a much darker tone than the Batman animated series Condiment King was created for, and if he was in the DCEU, they would have to make him incredibly deadly for it to work properly. This guy would basically just use allergies as a weapon, and I don't mean like the oh you got the sniffles and your eyes are kind of itching kind of allergies. I mean like throat closes up and eyes pop out of your head kind of allergies. They would have to turn Condiment Condiment King into such a horrific killer that he would actually end up being overpowered and probably cause a lot of controversy. Even if it was just like condiments combined with acid instead of normal condiments, that would be absolutely nuts. You thought that they handled Doomsday bad? Wait until you see people's faces melting because they got hit with Dijon honey mustard and freaking acid.
Number 8. Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze is Victor Freeze, a vastly underrated Batman villain in my opinion, but admittedly a hard villain to bring to the big screen, though maybe not as hard to bring to the big screen as Condiment King. And that's not just because of his overall look and character design, but because of how capable he can be and how powerful he is. Mr. Freeze is one of the few Batman villains who actually possesses powers and isn't just a deranged criminal. Of course, he is still a deranged criminal. Mr. Freeze in current continuity is also a deranged scientist, who from an early age seemed to have a fixation with the cold and cryogenics. This fixation likely existed because of key tragic moments that had happened when he was younger, also taking place in and around the cold, such as his father abandoning him and his mother's fatal injury and later death at his own hands. Freeze would become so obsessed he would convince himself that he was married to the subject of the first case of cryogenic stasis, despite the fact that she was technically like a lot older than him, Nora Fields. But a change to the timeline would make it so that this was actually true and that he and Nora had in fact been together before she was frozen, so she became his real wife, meaning their relationship was no longer considered one of Victor's delusions in main continuity. Mr. Freeze is not only powerful with his ice gun and unique physiology, which allows him to freeze anything he touches and create ice structures, but he is complex and unique in appearance, meaning we likely won't see him in the DCEU anytime soon. Not that I'm saying the villains aren't complex. That wasn't like a sick burn to the DCEU or anything, just to be clear.
Coming in at number 7, we have the intelligent zombie, Solomon Grundy. Inspired by a 19th century English nursery rhyme, Solomon Grundy was born centuries ago as a wealthy merchant, but after being murdered and having his body dumped in a swamp with mystical properties, he's now cursed to constantly be resurrected with slightly different properties each time. Usually being depicted as an incredibly physically strong zombie, Grundy is also incredibly resilient to both magic and physical damage, meaning that every time he's faced by either Batman or Superman, they need to figure out a clever new way to defeat him. Solomon Grundy has always been a dependable muscle for other villains throughout the years, but it would be nice to see him take more of a starring role in an upcoming Batman story. Coming in at number 6, we have CATMAN. Yep, that's not a typo, there's an actual Batman villain named CATMAN, and we'd love to see more of him in the comics as he continues to walk the fine line between villain and anti-hero. Born under the name Thomas Blake, CATMAN was initially a famous lion trapper that decided a life of crime was a better use of his peak human abilities, and even based his initial costume on that of the already established villain Catwoman. However, after years of being thwarted by Batman and becoming mocked by other supervillains, CATMAN reformed himself after some time in the jungle into becoming an anti-hero, and was most recently seen working alongside the Suicide Squad. With all of this character development making him more than just a joke character, CATMAN definitely deserves to face off against Batman once more. Coming in at number 5, we have Mr. Bloom, the plant-based villain. With the ability to plant seeds within people that would grant them incredible superpowers but at the cost of their lifespan, Mr. Bloom threw Gotham into chaos during a period where Bruce Wayne was unable to be Batman and Commissioner James Gordon had instead taken up the cape and cowl. The coolest thing about Mr. Bloom wasn't just the unique look of his powers and his visual design, but how they were able to manipulate the people and villains of Gotham into a new status quo so easily. Seeing this villain have a rematch with Bruce Wayne, or even get to interact more with the similarly plant-based Poison Ivy, seems like an obvious choice for a comeback, and I can't wait to see what this villain does next. Coming in at number 4, we have Prometheus. While not an alternate reality version of Bruce Wayne like several other villains on this list, Prometheus is still a dark reflection of the Batman, given that he had to watch his criminal parents be gunned down Bonnie and Clyde style by Gotham City police forces. Waging war against law enforcement and justice of any kind, Prometheus is made all the deadlier with his helmet that allows him to download fighting skills directly into his brain. Wolverine. It's this deadly combo of physical prowess and ideological differences that make Prometheus one of the more interesting Bat villains, and someone who definitely needs to be featured more often.
Number 2, Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is one of my favorite characters in the Batman universe, period. And also coincidentally one of the most powerful villains I think that currently exists in Batman's wheelhouse. She is brewing up something huge lately in the Batman comics and has threatened basically the entire world on multiple occasions, but also has sought in the past to remind people of why she strikes out as an eco-terrorist, at times working with international science communities and political meets to fight against global warming and work towards preserving important parts of our ecosystem. However, while Poison Ivy will be coming to the Arrowverse on CW, we still have yet to have a casting for her in the DCEU, and this could be because Pamela Isley is just too crazy complicated and OP to show up there. After all, she has proven before how hard she is to take on in the comics. When she took over the world, it seemed almost nothing initially, not even Batman, would be able to stop her.
And at 10, Professor Pig. Professor Pig originally debuted in the alternate reality story of Batman number 666, which I love, as a corpse, which I love even more. However, he was introduced as a recurring character in 2009 in Batman and Robin number 1. In Batman Reborn, Laszlo Valentine was an extreme circus mob boss until something turned him into Professor Pig, leading him to begin funding his scientific experiments by selling narcotics to the criminal underworld. Because of course he did. All in all, he's an extremely disturbing villain and makes me think about why people aren't actually like afraid of pigs. If you put me in a room with this guy and like his pet pig, I would be scared of both. Professor Pig, if you couldn't already tell, wears a pig mask despite him spelling pig incorrectly in his name, along with a butcher's apron and what at times appears to be some form of like thrown together surgical outfit, like if he was like trying to get a last minute Halloween costume. It's freaking weird, okay? And he ends up like brainwashing and controlling various people, and then he ends up calling them Dollatrons. Honestly, I don't know what I would do, okay? I would just run away from this guy. And at 7, Scarecrow. The Scarecrow has made an appearance in the Dark Knight movies, however those aren't in the DCEU, at least yet. Until this point, the closest we've gotten is the Fear Gas from the Arrowverse crossover event of Elseworlds. However, that gas made some insane hallucinations that ended up with the Flash, who at the time was Oliver Queen's, speed to be useless, which would be incredibly overpowered when it comes to the rest of the DCEU. When Oliver and Barry were fighting, Barry was landing hits on Oliver despite not having his super speed, and Oliver wasn't knocking Barry away with super speed punches. This being used on a greater scale, like we would see Scarecrow do in an actual movie, would absolutely destroy the world, especially with heroes like Superman and Martian Manhunter. And we know that this is how the Scarecrow's gas would operate in the DCEU, because thanks to the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, we got confirmation that Ezra Miller's Flash and Grant Gustin's Flash exist in the same multiverse. Or perhaps the cinematic universe exists within the antimatter universe. It would explain the darker themes. Either way, we know that's how the gas would work, and that would be a little too much to handle in one movie.
Number 6, Bane. Bane is known for being one of Batman's all-around strongest villains, but let's not forget that Bane also brings smarts to the table. Okay, so maybe not if we're counting the Harley Quinn animated series version of Bane, but comic book Bane at least is known for also possessing a brilliant mind. A lot of people forget that about him. He was the mastermind, in fact, behind the death of Alfred, which was also part of his scheme to break the Batman in a much more all-around way. Granted, he also took out Alfred because his demands were not being met. He'd basically ordered Batman not to make a rescue attempt, but then Damian Wayne did make a rescue attempt because he didn't listen to the warning that was given to them, and so Alfred died by Bane's hands after Damian's attempt failed. Bane, being such a massive man of muscle, also makes it hard to bring him to life. He's not only a hard villain to write, but he's also a difficult one to cast and depict as well, because he just looks like literally a brick house.
Halfway through, and at number 5, Arkham Knight. Not only is this character loved by some of the people who played the Batman Arkham series of games, the Arkham Knight is a highly skilled military technician who possesses expert knowledge of Batman's tactics and fighting style, which can be attributed to the fact that he was personally trained by the Vigilante, being revealed as Jason Todd, a moment that we all remember, for better or worse. He is a master of hand-to-hand combat, martial arts, and marksmanship. The high-tech military-like battle suit that he wears further enhances his physical strength, speed, and durability. When Batman was ambushed by the Dark Knight, he was able to knock the Dark Knight off his feet with one punch. This absolute mastery of Batman's tactics would make him a hella good villain, however the amount of power he has would probably be too much for the DCU. They already had Batman fight Superman and win, so they would have to like supercharge Arkham Knight to make it an actually interesting fight, which would just ruin the character even more than some would consider him already ruined.
Number 4, Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, depending on what you prefer. A lot of people prefer Ra's, I prefer Ra's. We can all coexist, it's a beautiful world. Ra's is one of Batman's all-time greatest nemeses. While he might not possess direct superpowers of any kind, like most of Batman's rogues, he is one of the most skilled fighters and has one of the most brilliant minds. Like Bane. I like people with brilliant minds apparently. Too bad Ra's usually uses his brilliant mind to concoct all sorts of schemes in order to topple governments, sow chaos, and gain power the world over. Ra's al Ghul is the head of the League of Assassins and has come close to completely defeating Batman in the past, with him even successfully using Batman's own research during the Tower of Babel JLA story to defeat all of Batman's superpowered colleagues on the team.
But ultimately, in number 2, the Holiday Killer. More commonly referred to as Holiday, they are one of the principal antagonists of the story Batman: The Long Halloween. A serial killer operating in Batman's early career, the murderer targets various associates and members of Gotham's crime families. Holiday's identity is only revealed in the final issue of the story, though their identity is apparently resolved, it's still left up to question. After the events of Batman Year 1, Batman, Gordon, and Harvey Dent unite to take down the Carmine Falcone, the leader of the Falcone crime family and the most powerful criminal in Gotham City. Around the same time, though, a mysterious assailant begins targeting mafiosi members and killing them. Each of the killings use the same MO. The victim shot with a .22 pistol with a baby bottle cap used as a silencer, and a memento is left signifying each holiday, like example jack-o'-lantern for Halloween. Each victim is also connected either directly or indirectly to the Falcone or Maroni crime families, though at least 2 are connected to Holiday's operations. Several red herrings are also left to misdirect readers' assumptions towards other characters. The identity of Holiday is apparently revealed at the end of the series, however 3 major characters are directly connected to the Holiday identity, so you can't really be sure which one it is. Finally, and at number 1, the Joker. The Joker has undergone many revisions since his 1940 debut. The most common interpretation of the character is that of a man who, while disguised as the criminal Red Hood, is pursued by Batman and falls into a vat of chemicals that bleaches his skin, colors his hair green and his lips red, and then drives him insane. I mean, I don't know how it would bleach your skin, color your hair, and then change the color of your lips, but hey, whatever. The reasons why Joker was disguised as Red Hood and his identity before his transformation have changed over time. However, the lack of solid, consistent origin is only part of what makes this character so mysterious. During the Darkseid War storyline, Batman uses Metron's Mobius chair to find out what the Joker's real name is. The chair's answer, though, leaves Batman in disbelief. It's only revealed what it said in the DC Universe Rebirth one-shot, where Batman informs Hal Jordan that the chair told him that there were actually 3 different Jokers, not just one. This revelation was the basis for the miniseries Batman 3 Jokers. 3 Jokers reveals that the 3 Jokers who work in tandem include the Criminal, which is the methodical mastermind based on the Golden Age Joker, the Clown, which is a goofy prankster based on the Silver Age Joker, and the Comedian, a psychopathic killer based on the Modern Age Joker who is obsessed with Batman. So yeah, certainly a mysterious character who has stood the test of time, and that's partly why people love him so much. You knew he was going to be on this list.